Well, the weather has brightened up and people have been saying that's going to happen for this week. It's going to be a nice, bright, sunny week. I'm going to try and make the most of it and make the footage a lot better than what happened today. So my apologies that this is footage of the sunny outside world from the dull and dreary inside world that I have been in all day. I haven't been out at all today. In fact, I haven't even gotten dressed properly. I've just put layers on top of my pajamas because it's an indoor day today, and that's just the reality. But again, it's going to kind of affect the vlogging quality of what you're going to see because the next footage is not cinematic. This is what it looks like when I am listening through a podcast, and this is what I have to do, and it tires me out quite quickly. Not that I don't enjoy it, but I think it's the process of knowing that I'm not out and on the road and I'm sat in concentrating on, the conversation that's happening and what images I need to get. And it's a great conversation. It's going to be a great podcast episode. They don't air on this channel. Anyone who's watching this channel for the first time or hasn't been keeping up to date with what's happening on this channel, this is a second podcast that started recently, and I've been working on it for months with a co-host. Richard Blades and I have started collaborating and interviewing painters with very high profiles, frame makers, gallery owners, curators, anything to do with painting. That's what we're covering on this channel. Not this channel that you're watching, the channel that I'm discussing, which is called Painting Insights Podcast. I will put a link in the description of this video. I need to retroactively go through all my other videos and put links for the channel in all of those descriptions as well, because I do want people to check it out. It's also on different platforms. I believe it's on Spotify and iTunes and all the places you normally get your podcasts, the RSS feeds. That's what I'm working on at the moment. I am a co-host and I do the editing of the podcast. So in this footage here, which is very unimpressive and unexciting, I'm sat inside, indoors, keeping it dull so that there's no distractions or glare off the screen, and just concentrating on the conversation and making sure that I put markers where I need to insert images or video to illustrate what the guest is saying. The guest that I am editing is called Yulia Krishna, and that will air on Wednesday. Today is Sunday that I'm editing and uploading this video. So if you do subscribe to the Painting Insights podcast channel, then you'll see the episode that I'm editing in this video aired on Wednesday. It airs at 8 a.m. GMT, which is the British time here, or just generally this time zone that we're living in. And that's what I'm working on. And it's really funny and really nice. She's Ukrainian, so she has amazing background and stories to share, as well as her artwork being fantastic. And I do love when you have the opportunity to discuss art with a guest who has a completely different world and lens that you do, so that you can then expand your perspective and see outside of this tiny bubble that we all live in of our own realities. So as much as this may look uninteresting because it's me editing the podcast, the actual podcast itself will be interesting. They all are. They're all really good. And yes, I'm biased because it's my podcast and I edit it and I'm a co-host. It's also great. But I'm going to get started on this submission for Inktober. Now, this sketchbook is one which I started for the exhibition, which is recently finished, called Movement in the Field. So it was called my movement sketchbook. The last sketch that I did in here was on the 7th. So it's technically a week ago, which is, again, quite a coincidence. I say again, I've not mentioned actually, the coincidence that I'm thinking of in my head is that yesterday's submission was a drawing with ink. They're all drawings with ink. What am I talking about? It was a drawing. It was a black ink drawing. The day before was colour. And I was really self-conscious about how scribbly and how overly saturated the colours are, because they were almost like felt tip ink pens. So I called that video 2 days ago, "Is This Awful?" And then the next day I was drawing kind of stomach and intestines and organs, and I was just drawing it away, and then edited the video. And when I was exporting the video, I was thinking, what can I call this? It's kind of like awful. Yesterday was "Is This Awful?" This one can be "Is This Awful?" And it was just a coincidence that it happened to be back to back. This happens to be a coincidence that it's a week later that I'm doing a sketch in this book, whereas every other sketch has either been on A4 paper or bits on cardboard, which I think I've only done one on cardboard, and that was yesterday. Anyway, the point being, bit of a coincidence. The concept behind this drawing is that when I was driving to Beaumaris to help set up an exhibition for 36 artists who all collaborated, not together, but on the same concept. They all made work with the same concept in mind. And I was helping to set that up and log and register and photograph everyone's work. When I was driving to this location, on the way, I saw all kinds of people on the sides of the road. I tried to film the journey. And one of the things that I saw was a little boy stood in concrete kind of gate post entrance of a house. And he was only young, and he had his foot resting on a football. He was just wearing a t-shirt and shorts, and he was leaning on the gatepost with his elbow. And it just seemed like a postcard image to me. And I was discussing this with a friend of mine this evening, that I haven't started my drawing yet. It's getting really late. I've just been working on the podcast all day. And when I mentioned this to her, she said, that could be a good idea. I need to do something fairly quick. I need to keep it as a line drawing. And this seemed like a good idea, a good concept to try and conjure. Now, it's from memory, and the boy was actually probably about 7 or 8 years old, whereas the boy in my drawing looks 10 or 11 years old. So I've added about 4 years onto him. So for this drawing, there are several things that I've got an issue with, but all in all, it could have gone worse. That's kind of a word or an expression that I use when I'm not fully satisfied with what I've done, but I'm going to let myself off for this one because it's really trying to produce a drawing for the day, and some days are harder than others, especially when you have work to do. Now, if you've been watching all of my Inktober videos, you'll see that I can have really busy days and then do a drawing that will be, whatever, it'll be quite good or just fairly decent or whatever. This one I'm just glad that anything came together, really. It's, I cut off his feet at the bottom. I did his shoulders too broad. And there are several things about the drawing where I think, that was too many lines and that's too heavy, but it's fine. I got something done, and I'm glad that I got something drawn for this day. So this is number 15, which you'll see on his right shoulder.